and welcome to the Hungary Moroccan. Today we're not going to be making Hungarian food nor Moroccan food, but we will be making delicious crab and shrimp cakes that we're going to bake in the oven. So let's get started. I'm going to show you some of the ingredients we're going to use today. I have 2 pounds of lump crab, and I'm combining blue crab and snow crab. I'm also using approximately 1 pound of peeled and deveined shrimp. We have 1 cup of mayo, several spices. I'm going to put the exact measurement in the recipe below for you. We're going to use some freshly chopped dill. We have some breadcrumbs, 2 eggs. We're going to need mustard. I usually like to combine the grainy Dijon and just regular Dijon, but if you have one or the other, even yellow mustard can work in this recipe. Some Worcestershire sauce, fresh squeezed lemon juice, and this is completely optional, but I like the texture and the sweetness of the imitation crab, so I'm going to be using just a little bit of that. This is approximately 4 ounces of lump imitation crab. You can totally leave that out, that's up to you. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start by making our sauce directly into the bowl. We're going to put in the 1 cup of mayo. Make sure you get all the little bits. I'm gonna break a couple of eggs into this, and I'm just breaking them whole directly into this because we're gonna be whisking them, so there's not gonna be any crazy stuff in there. Freshly squeezed juice from 1 lemon. Now I'm just being fancy, but of course you can hand squeeze that right in. And we're gonna put in a little bit of Cajun seasoning. This is approximately 1/2 teaspoon. We have a little bit of this kind of all-purpose seasoning. It's garlic, it's onion, it has some black pepper in it, some salt. There's about 1 teaspoon of that seasoning. It works really great with seafood. We have 1/2 teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper. About 1 teaspoon or so of garlic salt with some parsley in it. 1/2 teaspoon of Old Bay seasoning. And a little bit of smoked paprika for some color. We're gonna also decorate the top of our shrimp crab cakes with that. I'm gonna put in about 3 tablespoons total of mustard, so depending on the kind of mustard that you're using, whatever you have left, just use what you got. I love the texture of the grainy mustard, so I'm going to be using a little bit more of that. So in total, you probably want to have 2 to 3 tablespoons of mustard. That really just depends on your flavor preference. And then we're going to do a couple of tablespoons of the Worcestershire sauce. Just dump that right in. Now I'm working with gloves because we're going to be hand mixing these when we shape them. But if you don't mind getting all messy and dirty, then go right ahead. We're going to put a little bit of the dill inside the crab shrimp cakes, and then we're going to save some for the top. There is approximately 1/2 cup of freshly chopped dill. If you don't like dill, you can use parsley instead. I personally think that seafood works really well with lemon and dill, so that's something I always like to add. And then we're just going to be whisking this until we have a combined batter before we add our crab and our shrimp. So this looks about good to me. As you can see, we don't have any lumps from the egg. It's really kind of an easy dump and all one pot mix. So I'm using blue crab, and this is just the claws. I was able to get those at Harris Teeter, but you can probably get that at your local seafood department. I'm also mixing it with 1 pound of snow crab, also lump. And I just like the combination of the two in this dish. This is also from my local Harris Teeter. Now here I have peeled and deveined shrimp. They're kind of small to medium size. We're just gonna give those a rough chop and we're gonna throw them in the mix and put them all together. If you're using larger one, or if you like larger pieces in your dish, then you can leave them untouched. I'm just gonna be giving those a quick cut and getting right back to it. So a little bit of background about me. I've been cooking since I can remember. Always entertaining, always have friends over or friends' kids over. Really love the food that we make in this house. I cook some Hungarian kitchen dishes from my father's side of the family. My grandparents were Hungarian. We have some Moroccan dishes in this house, and overall Mediterranean, Israeli food. So it's really kind of an all-around, well-rounded, people who love food kitchen. So as you can see, I'm leaving the shrimp rather big. I want to make sure that you can taste them in every bite, and that's roughly 1 pound of shrimp here. Now these are raw. It's important to mention that you don't want to put pre-cooked shrimp in here because you will eat rubber when it comes out of the oven. Just a few more and we'll mix these right up. Okay. Now, like I said, this is totally optional. I love the texture and the sweetness that this adds to the dish, so I'm just gonna put about 4 ounces of that. Now, my crab is relatively strained, but then I made sure I strained it extra before. And I'm just gonna break it up. The blue crab claws are a little bit smaller pieces, but the other pieces are fairly chunky. So you want to make sure we break it up gently because you don't want to eat minced crab. That's not the purpose of this. Just gonna give this a good mix. Your hands are the best kitchen tool that you have. Don't be afraid to really get in there. That's why I'm putting gloves on. Now, the more you drain your crab, the better you drain your crab, the less breadcrumbs and binding agent you're gonna have to add into this. Because if you're like me, you wanna taste your seafood and not a breaded cake that you can just buy in the freezer section. So I wanna say we have about 5 or 6 tablespoons of breadcrumbs, and I'm just gonna add them into the mixture slowly and mix that in just to get a feel. This is still supposed to be barely held together when you're done with the breadcrumbs. And then we shape it and we bake it on a baking tray at 400 degrees. Depending on the size of your crab cakes, you might want to go anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. I like mine rather large. You can also make this in advance and freeze them, which is what I'm gonna do with some of my batter. These are looking good. The dill smells delicious. So this is roughly the texture that you want to get. You want to be able to shape it. It's still rather wet looking. It's going to be really lumpy, barely held together, but just enough. So I'm going to go grab my sheet pan and form these. Pardon my messy kitchen. Here we have a sheet pan. I just put some parchment on it and just put a little bit of cooking spray just to hold it together. And I like to make them about the size of my fist. So I kind of ball them up in my hand, rotate them around, make sure the sides are nice. You want to make sure it's nice and thick. We're going to be baking these. And you're just going to put them on your baking sheet. Of course, you can make these smaller if you want to make them for an appetizer, but then you'll have to lower your baking time to approximately, depending on the size, but you can do anywhere from like 12 to 15 to 20 minutes. Now, I recommend that if you're making this in advance and you want to freeze it before you cook it. You can always take it directly. Add some more. You can always take it directly from the freezer once they're frozen and shaped up. You can see all the beautiful, gorgeous, chunky crab pieces and shrimp pieces. And you can really serve this with different sauces. You can make a very simple lemon butter garlic sauce to go on top. You can just squeeze some fresh lemon on top of them. That's also delicious. Tartar sauce, remoulade sauce, really whatever floats your boat. I'm partial to dill and lemon, so I sprinkle a little bit of dill before I bake these. Look how juicy this one is. I feel like lunch will be calling my name in about 20 minutes. Now, if you like your crab cakes a little less juicy, a little more dry, you can always add some more breadcrumbs. I just used plain unseasoned breadcrumbs for mine, but you can use whatever you have on hand. If you have day-old bread, you can even toast that up a little bit and cut small chunks into this. If you don't have breadcrumbs accessible, you can use panko. And we're getting about 12 out of this amount. Fist size, chunky crab and shrimp cakes. I'm gonna make a couple of smaller ones for my kids. Although most days they can probably eat meat under the table. So our crab cakes are done. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of smoked paprika on top and some fresh dill, just for a little bit of color, a little bit of flavor. And also These are not store-bought. They need to look like they're homemade. Okay, now we're gonna sprinkle some fresh dill on top of these. Like I said, if you don't like dill or if you prefer parsley, then you'll just do this with parsley. I highly recommend using fresh herbs when you are making, well, any kind of dish, but really seafood specifically. You really don't want to put dried herbs in this. You're not gonna taste it as much. It's not gonna have that pop of fresh color and flavor. And then if you have kids like mine that don't eat green stuff, then just leave a few undecorated on the top. Okay, I'm gonna wash my hands. We're gonna put these in the oven for about 20 minutes. And I'm gonna come back and show you what they look like when they're all done and baked. Okay, so our crab shrimp cakes are coming out of the oven. They are nice, delicious, and brown. Now I put them on broil for the last 2 or 3 minutes just to crisp up the top a little bit. And also they were baking for maybe 21 minutes, 21 minutes, just because I made them so large. So they've been baking on 400. I'm gonna sprinkle some fresh lemon on top, lemon juice, as soon as it comes out of the oven and it's hot, and we're gonna get tasting. If you are making this recipe, then be sure to let me know how you like it and how it came out for you. If you like this recipe, press like. Don't forget to subscribe to my channels for more delicious recipes. See you next time.